From Bansa, we have Mr. Sani Inco, Mr. Sammy Perez, and Mr. Apollo Mariaga. From the United Filipino Global, we have Ms. Gemma Soto, Jenny Taguba, Lou Medina, Glenn Blasquez, Jennifer Guardian, Normila Acampong, Mary Ann Madriaga, Dalisay Solomon, Jonathan Marigsa, Ami Timbal, Lulu Portuguese, and Miss Emily Barameda. From the recruitment and manning sector, from the joint manning group, we have Mr. Erickson Marquez and Mr. Jose Albarcato. From the Philippine Association of Service Exporters, Inc., or PASEI, we have Ms. Raquel Bracero, Kay Quintos, Attorney Nestor Tolentino, and Ms. Leslie Tan. From the Coalition of Licensed Agencies Deploying Service Workers, or CLADS, we have Ms. Lucy Sermonia, Jesse Gutierrez, Attorney Antoinette Bautista, Ms. Telma Wanang, and Ms. Alicia De Volgado.
Good morning, Comsec. Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Meron po bang hindi po nabanggit para ma-acknowledge po?
From second presence also. From second presence also.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we also have in the room one of the authors, Deputy Speaker Aurelio Gonzales. Mr. Chairman, that would be all.
Thank you, Comsec. We acknowledge the presence of Deputy Speaker Aurelio Gonzales. We also have Representative Christian Deliap. Thank you once again, as well as all our resource persons and guests. We also acknowledge the presence of members of the media in the room. Thank you. A pleasant morning, everyone, and welcome to our third committee meeting. Thank you all once again for attending our online meeting, even if we are currently on recess. We note that in our agenda, we have two items to discuss. First is the initial deliberation of 9 House bills, which seek to extend additional protection to overseas Filipino workers by granting them 50% discount on fees or charges imposed on remittances to their families in the Philippines. The measure prohibits financial intermediaries offering remittance services from raising their current fees without prior consultation with the Department of Finance, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or the Department of Migrant Workers, in as much as we already have our new department now. In return for offering discount, the establishments are allowed to claim tax deductions. This proposed measure is principally authored by Deputy Speaker Aurelio Gonzales, who is present in today's hearing, and has filed this bill in the previous Congresses. In fact, we note that this bill, which has undergone extensive deliberation in the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs, as well as in the Committee of Ways and Means, has been approved on third reading in the previous 18th Congress. All the bills under consideration right now, including the bill of Deputy Speaker Gonzales, have the same provisions as that of the third reading bill approved last Congress, except that we note that House Bill 1190 of Representative Christian Deliap, which has a slight variance to the rest of the bills, but the same objective of giving protection to the remittances of our migrant workers. We'll be hearing from the authors later, as well as from the resource persons from the concerned government agencies, such as the Department of Finance, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, Department of Migrant Workers, and OWA, after which we will also hear from the private sector and from the OFW organizations. Second is the initial deliberation of 3 House bills which seek to provide a credit assistance program for our OFWs. The proposed credit assistance grants a loan of 50,000 pesos to departing OFWs to help them in the first months of their overseas work. The OFWs may choose to leave the loaned amount to their families, or they can use the amount to pay for placement fees and other fees, I suppose. The bills provide for certain requirements, such as valid employment contract, plane ticket, and bank account, and for the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, to implement the program. So we will be hearing from OWA on this proposed measure, considering that Republic Act number 10801, or the OWA Act, one of the services of which they are required to provide is to offer low-interest loans to member OFWs. So we will check on the status of this loan program and how is this being implemented and how many OFWs have availed of this program. perhaps we need to be apprised whether this particular proposed measure is already being undertaken by OWA. With that, we hope to have a fruitful and orderly discussion. And as I mentioned, we will start with the bills on protecting the remittances of OFWs. So we'll consider now House Bill 185, an act providing for protection of the remittances of overseas Filipino workers, introduced by no less than our Deputy Speaker, Aurelio Gonzales. Deputy Speaker.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that the Deputy Speaker has undergone a medical procedure, and he requested that his explanatory note be entered into the record as his sponsorship speech for today. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Comsec. I thought that he was the one who joined the hearing. That's the reason why I acknowledge the Deputy Speaker. But I was previously informed also that he won't be able to join us in as much as he has a procedure to undergo. Also, he sent me a copy of his sponsorship speech. In the interest of time, I'm going to send this Comsec to you for it to be included or intercalated in our in the minutes of the meeting. So I won't read it anymore, but basically it's really more of explaining on the value or the importance of this particular proposed measure that he introduced.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll introduce it. We will make it part of the record of the committee.
Thank you, Comsec. We'll now proceed to House Bill 1190, an act protecting the remittances of or money transfers of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs by requiring the disclosure of finance charges and other fees in connection with money transfer, compelling strict adherence to the terms and conditions of your transfer, penalizing violations thereof, and for other purposes, introduced by Representative Christian Tel Yap, one of the vice chairs of our committee. Vice Chair Yap?
Yes, good morning, Chairman Ron Salo and the other members of the committees, our resource persons, and our ComSec. Thank you for the opportunity for giving me an opportunity to open to give the opening statement of my House Bill. So House Bill 1190, an act protecting the remittances or money transfers of our overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, by requiring the disclosure of finance charges and other fees in connection with money transfer, compelling strict adherence to the terms and condition of their transfer, penalizing violations thereof, and for the other purposes. So to my colleagues, distinguished guests, and fellow workers in government, good morning. We consider our overseas Filipino workers as the modern-day heroes of our nation. They leave the country in search for better-paying jobs in foreign lands, primarily to provide for their families they leave behind and to improve their quality of life. The income that OFWs receive from their foreign employers are transferred through bank and non-bank financial institutions for the benefit of their families here in the Philippines. In compensation to their service, these financial institutions impose money transfer fees and charges, which in effect reduces the amount received by the families of OFWs relying on these remittances. However, certain fees and charges from these service providers are oftentimes unknown to OFWs, decreasing the money they send to their families. So according to the latest data as of March 7, 2022 from Philippine Statistics Authority, 1.77 million overseas Filipino workers are working overseas during the period of April to September 2020. Furthermore, our modern-day heroes who work abroad sent home a record-breaking 34.884 billion in cash remittances last year. Therefore, ensuring the protection of remittances of all of our OFWs are not only necessary for their financial welfare, but also to sustain the growth of our national economy. Pursuant to the mandate of the state to promote all the rights of all the workers, whether domestic or overseas, it is necessary that money that OFWs send to their families are well protected against exorbitant charges by money transfer industry. It is the best interest of the state to protect all OFWs and their families by requiring intermediary financial institutions to actively disclose their service fees, ensuring that these third-party service providers are following proper and just practices under the law. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and to all the authors of the same bill, we pray that this piece of legislation be passed in the soonest time possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Yap. Next is House Bill number 2944, introduced by Representative Jojo Lara. Is he in the room? If not, may I request if anyone willing to sponsor the said
Mr.
measure?
Chairman, I would gladly sponsor the measure of Congressman Villago and enter his explanatory note as his sponsorship speech.
Thank you very much, Congressman Gatchalian. I understand that you're also one of the authors. Just comment, it's not Villago, it's Congressman Lara. So we know, thank you, Congressman Gatchalian, for sponsoring the measure of Congressman Jojo Lara. Next is House Bill 320, introduced by Congressman Antonio Legarda Jr. Is he in the room as well?
Yes, good morning, Chairman Ron Salo. Good morning,
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
You're recognized.
Okay. Yes. To all our my honorable colleagues, may aga sa kanyo tanan. Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank you for giving me the privilege of participating in this committee hearing. I also would like to thank the committee for giving priority to the House Bill number 3020, or in the act providing for protection of the remittances of overseas Filipino workers. I understand that several versions of this bill were also filed by my colleagues, but just for the record, this bill is also a counterpart measure of former Deputy Speaker and now Senate President Pro Tem Lauren Legarda. This likewise Chairman Gonzales Pilipinas shows that personal remittances from OFWs account for 8.9% of the Philippines GDP in 2021, titled Modern Day Heroes, for their contribution to the economy. Thus, it is time for the government to do its part by affording full protection to our OFWs' remittances. Thus, this bill seeks to provide safeguards to protect the foreign exchange remittances of OFWs, granting a 50% discount on remittances received by their immediate family members, prohibiting bank and non-bank financial intermediaries offering remittances services from raising their remittances fees without prior consultation from Department of Finance, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the Philippine Overseas Employment Agency, and the mandatory financial education program to OFWs and their families. With this in mind, Mr. Chairman and my honorable colleagues, I invite you to support the passage of these measures. And again, I'd like to thank you, my honorable colleagues, with you, all of you. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much also, Representative Legarda. I just respectfully note that there are instances where your internet signal has fluctuated and we were not able to hear certain portions of it. So we will request you to please submit the manuscript of your sponsorship speech to the ComSec for us to be able to make sure that everything is placed on the minutes of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Next is House Bill 4170, introduced by Representative Harris Christopher M. Ongchuan. Is he in the room, present?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Being a kababayan and a member of the minority, may I just request that his explanatory note be part of his sponsorship speech for Mr. Congressman Harris.
Thank you very much, Representative Noel. Can you please change it into a motion, please?
I move that we adopt his explanatory note as his sponsorship speech, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any second the motion?
Second the motion. Chair.
Thank you. Has been moved and seconded. Thank you. That his explanatory note be entered as his sponsorship speech for House Bill 4170. House Bill 4257, introduced by Representative Marissa Magsino. Understand also that he is not present because she is on an official travel. May I request for anyone who would be willing to sponsor?
Again, being a
Chair.
member of the minority, I move that her explanatory note be her sponsorship speech, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any second the motion?
I
Second the motion.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We note that thank you, that's been moved and seconded that the explanatory note of Congresswoman Marissa Magsino be entered as her sponsorship speech. We acknowledge the presence of Representative Jojo Lara. We acknowledged you earlier, Congressman Lara, and it has been moved and seconded that your explanatory note will be entered as your sponsorship speech. But nonetheless, we acknowledge you and give you the opportunity if you wish to say anything more concerning your bill.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, my dear colleagues present this morning. Thank you very much for manifesting that my my explanatory note for House Bill 2944 be my sponsorship speech, Mr. Chair. Once again, Mr. Chair, I so move. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Lara. Next, we consider House Bill 4343, an act providing for protection of the remittances of overseas Filipino workers, introduced by Representative Josephine, Veronica, Jaye, Lacson-Noel, and Florencio, Gabriel, Noel. Congressman Noel, you are recognized.
Thank you, mo pangaghaton nga tanan. Again, may I request that our explanatory note be made as our sponsorship speech, Mr. Chair, and I move that we adopt.
Thank you very much.
I second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Has been moved and seconded that the explanatory note of House Bill number 4343 be entered as the explanatory sponsorship speech. Now we recognize Congressman Rex Gatchalian for House Bill 4397.
Mr. Chairman, likewise, I would like to move and enter my explanatory note as my sponsorship speech. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Second the motion.
I second the
Thank
motion.
you.
Second the motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So it will enter as the explanatory note as the sponsorship speech. How about House Bill 4469? We recognize the presence of, are they in the room? The authors, Representative Paolo Z. Duterte, Eric Goyap, Edvic Giap, and Jeffrey Soriano. They're not in the room, so anyone who would like to sponsor or move?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to also move that we enter their explanatory note as their sponsorship measure. So move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Second the motion. Thank you. Has been moved and seconded and no objection. So the motion is carried. Now we will hear from our resource persons concerning these proposed measures. COMSEC, please acknowledge who will be the first to speak concerning these proposed measures.
Mr. Chairman, probably we can start with the representative of the Department of Finance. We have the confirmed attendance. If anybody representative in the room, please. Yes, we have Miss Jenny Ginto.
Yes.
We acknowledge the presence. You're recognized, Director Jen Ginto.
No, Division Chief lang po.
Division Chief, yes. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning po. And good morning din po sa members ng committee and other my colleagues from the government offices. Sir, on House Bill 185-2944-3020, 4170, 4357, 4343, 4397, and 4469, or on the OFW Remittance Act. We will still submit our official position on this, but sir, we would like to manifest our initial comments. First po, on the proposed discount on remittances, we pose reservation po on this proposal as this would result in a reduction of government revenues. This would also, we already submitted our previous position during the 18th Congress, and we just want to reiterate our reservation on this proposal. This will also pose administrative difficulties po, as tax administrations may have to require additional requirements for both OFWs and the financial intermediaries to check and verify claims of the deductibility. So, sir, we would also like to note that the proposal comes on top of various existing policies being enforced by the government to reduce the transaction costs of OFW remittances. For instance, po, under RA 10022 or the Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipinos Act of 1995, remittances of OFWs are already exempt from the disposition of DST at a rate of 0.60 for every 200 pesos collected, and all transfers and remittances from abroad and payable in the Philippines. Also, under the expanded foreign currency deposit system, an overseas contract worker is already exempt from the 15% final withholding tax on interest income. Also, we would like also to mention that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas po has already imposed guidelines on the remittances charges or remittance service providers. Maybe my colleague from the BSP can already expand on this. We will provide for the details of our comments once our position paper is signed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Division Chief. May I inquire how much exactly would be the revenues that you're saying that may be lost as a result of this particular proposed measure?
Yes, sir. Actually, we have on a previous position paper we submitted, we estimated the government loss that the government will have for in the amount of 2.8 billion to 3.5. I will still update this figure, as we know that the number of our OFWs are also increased in this time. So I think more or less this will be bigger po. So 2.8 billion to 3.5.
Thank you very much. So please send us a complete list of all the data that you've mentioned for the other members would be able to have the opportunity to comment as well. But nonetheless, we will give our authors opportunity to ask questions later when all the resource persons have made their statements. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, ComSec.
Mr. Chair, probably should hear from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas as one of the...
Siguro muna, ComSec, we request muna yung POA and DMW, then DFA, then OWA, then we go to Bangko Sentral later.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
How about DMW? Who will be representing DMW? ComSec, DMW.
We have many representatives from the DMW, Mr. Chairman, so probably we can ask them who are present in the room who would be speaking on this matter.
Will it be Yusek Kakdak? Yusek, are you in the room?
Yusek Kakdak, I believe is not yet present, Mr. Chairman, but we have I see Assistant Secretary Alcantara.
Alcantara, may we hear the position of the DMW in this particular proposed measures?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, ComSec. Good morning to everyone. Good morning to all of our colleagues in government. I would just want to express our overall support as initial impressions on the foregoing House bills that are being considered. But these are initial, and we shall subsequently submit our official positions on each of the details for the House bills in consideration. The overall intent of the protection of remittances of overseas Filipino workers, as well as establishing a credit assistance program for them, is a welcome development in the legislative branch. As we go along and we go specific to each of the House bills, Mr. Chair, we would like to reserve our initial specific comments if the Chair so allows. Thank you po.
Thank you, Asek. Thank you. Now, may we recognize Admin Arnel Ignacio from OWA.
Right, and
Admin Arnel. Later on,
Good
perhaps.
morning. We're encountering a very difficult connection. I'm please pardon us. We're the connection here, it keeps on fluctuating. So I wasn't in spite of me being here early, I wasn't able to grasp the whole exchange of our meeting.
But nonetheless, thank you very much, Admin Arnel. We acknowledge your presence. We're just requesting for your comments on the proposed measures concerning the protection of remittances of OFWs. So perhaps I'll call you once again later when you're able to hear.
Again, my apologies, Chairman. We're preparing our stand regarding this this bill. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Comsec. Now we acknowledge the. May we call on representative from DFA OMWA, Yusek Eduardo Jose de Vega.
Good morning, Congressman and everyone. Of course, the Department of Foreign Affairs would support any measures to help our overseas Filipinos. This is a common complaint that we receive from our constituents abroad. May we just point out two things about the bills. One, there is talk about penalties and all, but obviously when they remit from abroad, they use remittance centers or banks, and we can't impose rules on those banks, on foreign centers, as to how they would charge for remittance. Of course, we understand that the bill, therefore, the bills, many of them, would refer to the money, the banks or centers receiving money here, not to charge, for example, a commission or so forth. So we just wanted to make that clear because we can't extraterritorially apply our laws. And secondly, we have to clarify also who are the beneficiaries, because in some of the bills we specify overseas Filipino workers or migrant workers, but there are many Filipinos abroad who might not fall under that category. For example, those who are there as permanent residents, or those who are dual citizens already, who are still contract workers or workers, but they become dual citizens. And are they not going to be covered? So perhaps the idea is all remittances from abroad to the Philippines should be covered, instead of just limiting it to a certain type of Filipino contract workers, because they're going to compete among each other. They say, why does this person have the benefit? I don't have the benefit. Of course, in practicality, we know it's going to apply to all remittances from abroad. I think that was the idea. But in principle, we support any measures to help our overseas Filipinos and migrant workers. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, Yusek. We take note of your comments, and we hope that this particular enhancements or the proposed measure will be considered in order to make sure that those particular clarifications will be made in case this particular proposed measure is enacted into law. Thank you. We acknowledge now from POA, which is under DMW also, Yusek Bernard Ulalia. Yusek Bernard. Not yet here. So we'll now go to
Mr. Chair, with apologies po. Our undersecretaries were called on a meeting at Malacanang this morning, so they shall be catching up if their time allows po.
Thank you, Asek. Thank you. Now we'll go to BSP. Comsec, please acknowledge who is the representative from BSP.
Yes, I see Ma'am Cynthia Season from BSP.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
and our colleagues po from the committee. Thank you for the opportunity for us to be here and share our views on the proposed bill. As you have mentioned, the BSP is here in full force. Malaki yung contingent because we do give our full support to any legislative measure that will protect and improve the welfare and economic and social conditions of OFWs and their families. So as mentioned earlier by our colleague from the DOF, the BSP recognizes the importance of disclosure in helping reduce or at least inform OFWs and their beneficiaries of the costs related to remittance transactions. So even prior to the enactment of this bill, we have already in place rules that require banks and other non-bank financial institutions under our supervision to disclose to both if they provide overseas remittance services, to disclose to the remittance sender and to the recipient or the beneficiary minimum information on the remittance transactions. And the information that is required to be disclosed is quite detailed. They need to show how much is the transfer remittance fee, the exchange rate differential or spread, other currency conversion charges, and other related charges like telecommunications, wire transfer costs, postal costs. And they should also inform the beneficiary as to the exact amount of money that the recipient should receive in local currency or foreign currency, and the approximate delivery time for the remittance to happen. The bill, I think the bills also recognize the importance of education, financial education for OFWs. And in fact, the BSP and the OWA, we have entered into a memorandum of agreement wherein we integrate financial literacy sessions in both the pre-departure orientation seminars and post-arrival orientation seminars, or at least when the OFWs reach their point of destination outside. So this is an ongoing program in coordination with the OWA because we recognize the importance of the same. We also echo the insights shared by our colleague from the DFA. There might be a challenge in at least determining the base where the discount shall be applied because in the case of remittances, this is usually charged at the point of origination. So this is an agreement between the OFW and perhaps the bank or the money transfer operator, which is located in the country outside the Philippines. So even before the remittance happens, the sender and the bank outside the country, which is outside our jurisdiction also, they already agree on the rates and the remittance costs. So the last mile, or rather the remittance center here, or the beneficiary bank or the financial institution in the Philippines where the money is sent to, they do not have the sole influence on the pricing because this is done outside of the country at where the OFW operates or resides. So there might be difficulty in applying or determining po yung discount. So what the BSP is doing, because we know that it is very important to find ways to lower naman din po yung remittance costs for OFWs. We have programs, aside from what I have mentioned earlier, to institute improvements in our country's payments and settlement system. So at least for the costs for the domestic banks and financial institutions, with the use of technology, they can lower yung their own transfer costs. So that will help reduce the overall remittance cost for the OFW. So there are several initiatives in this space on digital payments. And we also actually encourage competition because if there are more players in the market and the prices are disclosed to OFWs and their beneficiaries, they have an option to choose as to which bank or financial institution they can engage with And with more competition, this will help also further reduce remittance costs for the country. But we also know that over time, the World Bank publishes a report. Over time, at least the efforts of the Philippines and other government agencies, parang we see naman po that the remittance costs have been, on average, have been declining. But I guess there is also still room for more programs to further reduce costs for OFW. This is not our official position. We will also be sending our official position. We are just sharing our preliminary side. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Cynthia Sison. So we greatly acknowledge and commend the BSP for providing us such a comprehensive comments on the proposed measure. We'll await for your final position paper as well as your guidance to this committee, how to proceed and how to ensure that the remittances will really be protected, as well as to lower the cost of the remittance fees being borne by our OFWs. And perhaps you can also provide us some guidance whether or not a legislation may still be needed, or there are other measures or admin matters that may be pursued to achieve the same objective. With that, we acknowledge the presence of Representative Lani Mercado-Revilla, who's present in the room. Thank you, ma'am. And who's next, Comsec?
Mr. Chairman, we are done with the government agencies for their comments. So we can now go to the other resource persons.
So please, Comsec, you may please call them.
Yes, there are some resource persons who are raising their hands for the comments. Mr. Chair, I see Mr. Paul Madriaga, Attorney Castillon, and Misa Sadicon.
Good morning.
Comsec, how about the Bankers Association of the Philippines, if they're present in the room?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Before we go to the OFW organizations.
Yes, I see Mr. Marlon Hernandez, Mr. Chairman, representing the Bankers Association as well as the Association of Bank Remittance Officers.
We acknowledge Mr. Marlon Hernandez for the comments of his organization.
Yes, sir. Chairman Ron Salo, good morning, and to the rest of the members of the committee, the different government agencies, and our friends and colleagues at the private sector. Good morning to everyone. So, sir, while we have submitted our official position paper on particularly on House Bill 185, please allow me to echo this position by pointing out some of the salient points that we have raised in that position. So as mentioned by our friends from BSP, the fees, World Bank sent out survey on the average cost of remittances, for example, 200. During the time that we have initially participated in these hearings under the 17th Congress, the World Bank survey says that 5.55% is the cost of sending remittance for 200. At that point, assuming the exchange rate is 50, that's about 550 pesos cost. Now, we have made representation back then that the majority or bulk of the fees are not within the control of the Philippine banks. Thus, our fee back then when we represented in 2017 is about on us. When we say on us transaction, meaning if I am a China bank, remittances from our partners to China bank can be free up to 100 pesos. That represents only 20% of the total cost, or roughly 1% of the whole $200 remittance. For cash pickup, then we have to account for the cash pickup fees that increases a bit up to 1.7%, something like 170 at most. Now, for other banks, our cost then is about 120 to 65 to 120, again representing mere 1.1% of the total remittance. Now, number 2 point is that delivery modes in overseas are offered in varying levels of speed, convenience, access points, and rates, for which OFWs are free to choose from. Again, we reiterate that most of the Philippine banks operate on a partnership with foreign institutions, banks and non-bank financial services. So number 3, as I pointed out earlier, World Bank survey indicates that in 2017, the cost is about 5.55%. When we made our position paper on that year, November, that year already reduced the average cost to 5.03. Now, as of June of this year, 2022, this has further gone down to 4.8%, the global average or weighted average. Now, as we had pointed out, these fees are continuously dropping. In fact, when BSP came out with the NRPS, or National Retail Payment System, this activated 2 ACH, or automatic clearing houses, namely InstaPay and PesoNet. So this had actually put a level playing field among Philippine banks and non-banks. So from that time, this NRPS or this ACHS further brought down the cost of fees much lower. So when we represented our position paper back in 2017, as I mentioned, the fees range from 65 to 120 for credit to bank accounts. Some are even free. Now, with the activation of InstaPay and PesoNet, the fees that we are now talking about with our partners is 50 pesos at most, 40, 30, 25. Now, with the advent of more players, we only anticipate that this competition will be heightened. So, from the time that this bill was initially conceptualized, Chairman Salo, the main purpose of the bill of offering 50% discount has far been exceeded by the competition, by the pressure of competition from an average of 100 pesos piece. Now we're talking about 30, 40, even lower, 25, 20. And we see that the pressure will only be heightened and will further bring this fees down in the near future. Maybe 2023, we'll be talking about 20, 15 pesos fee for the remittances that we are collecting from our services with our partners and the remitting clients. So, sir, we have submitted our position paper. This was endorsed by Bankers Association of the Philippines. So we just want to manifest this on this meeting. So thank you very much, sir. Hopefully, we reserve our comments on the hefty penalties and lengthy imprisonments because we hope that with these points, the passing of the bill will not be necessary. So that's our position, sir, and the Association of Bank Remittance Officers, duly endorsed by the by the Bankers Association of the Philippines.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marlon Hernandez, for your comments, as well as that of your organization. We will await your final position paper on this matter, but we really take note of the comments that you mentioned and the items you raised in this particular hearing, noting that from the time that this particular proposed measure was originally introduced in the House of Representatives, I understand, as you mentioned, it has already far exceeded the objective of lowering it to just 50%, but now it has gone down to as low as 25% without our particular legislation being approved into law. Thank you, Mr. Marlon Hernandez. We acknowledge the presence of Representative Edward Hargedorn as well, who's in the room. Now, who's next? Comsec?
Mr. Chairman, we will now proceed to the other resource persons. I see the hand first of OWA Administrator Arnel Ignacio, sir.
We acknowledge, we will recognize now Admin Arnel Ignacio.
Thank you very much, Chair. Of course, OWA will always champion the cause of our OFWs. So for the benefit of the OFW, we shall always support. However, we would like to submit the following comments and inputs on the proposed agenda for deliberation regarding the protection of remittances of our OFWs. I'd like to mention that in the mandate of OWA under Section 6 of RA 10801, which states the OWA shall exercise the following functions: to provide social and welfare programs and services to member OFWs, including social assistance, education, training, cultural services, financial management, reintegration, and entrepreneurial development services. The OWA currently is conducting financial education to OFWs and their families in all stages of their migration. Financial education is included in the pre-departure orientation program, and our overseas welfare officers conduct financial literacy trainings for OFWs on site, and our regional welfare officers for OFWs and their families. We also move to include financial planning in the provision, since it will also be of a great help to our OFWs, especially those who are just newly deployed, to plan for their future financial goals. In this regard, it is respectfully proposed, Chair, to specify OWA in Section 10 of House Bill 185 and include planning on its second paragraph. Section 10, mandatory financial education for OFWs, their families. The Department of Finance, together with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, OWA, and other agencies shall ensure that a mandatory financial education program will be provided to OFWs and their families. As mentioned kanina po nung ating taga-BSP, at meron po na tayong napirmahan na MOA with them regarding this. The program shall include the instruction on financial planning, management, budgeting, investment options, and similar topics, which shall educate the OFWs and their families in the handling of their earnings and remittances. So, Mr. Chair, with in support of the bill regarding remittances, OWA can participate very actively in providing education, training to echo our support. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Admin Arnel. Thank you for your comments. May I just go back to Mr. Marlon Hernandez? He's still around.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Hernandez, may I request you to provide us also statistics as to the yearly decrease, quote unquote, of the remittance fees being incurred by your OFWs?
We will gather some information along with our colleagues from the Association of Bank Remittance Officers, which is a membership among 10 banks active in the remittance business. And if I may, sir, just add, as we pointed out, the cheapest way to send remittance is really credit to account, and with the proliferation of the e-wallets that have now been very active, this actually brought down the fees. And what we do among the bank members is that we have been for years offering our own version of OFW accounts, which requires no maintaining balance requirements for both the OFW and their families. So we continue to participate with the pre-departure orientation seminar, and we do our own roadshows to offer this product. And with the activation of the national ID system, which is now rolling out, this should help in the onboarding process, which made it easier for the banks to onboard clients, particularly that we have now deployed mobile apps that will allow them to open an account remotely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hernandez. May I request you to please include these particular items in the position paper that you will be submitting, as well as the cost of the distribution of the cost. As mentioned a while ago, a portion of it actually is being paid basically to the partner institutions which are located outside. So for us to be able to see exactly how much goes to the partner institutions, which the Philippine government has no jurisdiction of, as well as that of those that are being under the jurisdiction of the Philippine government. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Now we recognize from ako OFW, Marcia Salicon, National President.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, the honorables who are present here. Thank you for the acknowledgement. I would just like to give a comment. It is really that ako OFW supports this bill in protecting the remittances of our OFWs. but it is noteworthy that there is no best agency that could protect it except the government. And we have the OF Bank. I don't know if I missed it from the proposed bill, but I did not see the OF Bank's participation. OFW has been promoting OF banks to our members. We have almost 300,000 membership around the globe, and we are promoting the use of OF bank, especially now that e-wallets, as mentioned earlier, is proliferating. It really the cheapest way of remitting, and it would also deter the attitudes of some employers who are not paying the salaries of our HSWs on time. Using the OF Bank, which is the first branchless banks and paperless bank, I think this would be one of the best way of protecting the remittances of our OFWs. I would just like to state an actual experience of my mom. My sister, who is an OFW in the US, sent her some amount. And when my mom went to the remittance center, the money was already withdrawn by someone else who had forged. Good thing I was with my mom. So I had to ask the guy, I will not mention the remittance center, but it's one of the famous remittance centers here. I asked him to show me the specimen signature that was used. They refused because they said it's confidential. It cannot be confidential because my mom is with me. But that was me. How about if it happened with someone else who doesn't have the courage to challenge? They have the CCTV. You know what? It was withdrawn by the staff of that remittance center. And it's sad to think about what I know it's happening also with some other OFWs, because they post in the Facebook that the money they sent was already withdrawn by someone else. So I would really suggest this committee to give a study on the participation of OF Bank, and it's high time that we really have to promote the functions and role of the OF banks. Since it is a government entity, a government bank, for sure, mas mababa po ang charges niyan. Yun lamang po. Kasi wala naman po tayong hangad kung hindi ang protektahan ang hard-earned money ng ating mga OFWs. So, last note is we hail the heroes and sheroes of our country, the OFWs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marcia Sadikwan. We carefully take note of your comments, and we're instructing here COMSEC to invite OF Bank in our next hearing if we're going on this particular measure. So we acknowledge also the presence of Assistant Secretary from DFA, Paul R.P. Cortez. Ambassador Cortez, do you wish to say anything?
Thank you very much, COMSEC. Paul Cortez from the Department of Foreign Affairs. Yes, according to the World Bank figures, the Philippines is the fourth largest receiving country in the world after India, China, and Mexico. And obviously, it behooves us to do a lot of homework with regard to protecting our overseas Filipinos remittances, primarily as they help towards the development goals of our country. Yesterday at the NEDA planning session, we had a meeting regarding the Philippine Development Plan for 2023 to 2028, where the target of putting down the percentage of remittances being taken off from the sending costs is down to 3% by 2028, and hopefully even lower. And obviously, a lower remittance cost would go down to the benefit of the families because they have more for their consumption. And at the same time, we take a look at how remittance could be used towards further investment ng mga kababayan natin, and not just investment in the urban areas, but in the rural areas as well. And this behooves us also, again, with the law, to take a look at the rural investment climate that would help our overseas Filipino families in the rural areas to make sure that their remittances are wisely drawn. Also, at the same time, we put in our full support for the bills, primarily because financial inclusion, and the hope that we have more avenues for our kababayans to understand what remittances and investments can do as far as Philippine development is concerned. Because as we move towards a 21st century that's entirely more digital, it makes us realize that we have to make remittances and the use of information technology in a digital era as something that is urgent and something that we have to take care of. We need to integrate digital solutions and transfers, creating the linkages so that mas inclusive ang dating ng financial services para sa mga pamilya ng mga overseas Filipinos natin. The DFA is also beginning to take the lead in discussing the issue of wage theft. Ito yung sinasabi po ni Ms. Marcia ng Ako OFW po kanina, where some of our kababayans are not receiving the full extent of their salaries. Either nagkontrata nila, either they're unaware of their contract and or something that they are beyond their control. And this is something that the DFA, together with the other government agencies, is trying to make aware as far as putting it on the table in international forum discussions. So again, the DFA is fully supportive, and we do hope we can play a role in the passing of these legislations. Salamat po.
Thank you very much, ASEC Cortez and Ambassador Cortez, for your comments. We really hope that we'll be able to receive also your position paper for us to be able to integrate it in the consolidated bill later on. Thank you. We acknowledge now Attorney David Castillon from what organization, Attorney David?
Hello, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I am representing also the Ako OFW, and at the same time, I am representing more than 100 agencies, Your Honor, because I am the lawyer of so many agencies in the Philippines, Your Honor.
Any specific item that you wish to mention, this particular proposed measure that we're discussing?
Yes, Your Honor. I would like to make a comment about the proposed bill on the credit assistance program, Your Honor. Mr. Chair, I would like to...
Attorney David, we're not yet in that particular bill, so we'll proceed after this particular measure is being... So okay. We'll acknowledge you later on. Thank you. From Bansa, Paul Madriaga.
Good morning, Chairman Salo. Good morning po sa lahat. Ako po si Paul Madriaga ng Bansa, ako Batanggenyo ng Saudi Arabia, representing the OFWs here. So, we support the measure po, yung protection of remittances of OFWs na file na House bills. So, for the record po, kaming mga OFW po dito sa Saudi Arabia, we spent 17 riyal, Saudi riyal sa remittance fees, or equivalent to 2,500 pesos. And I agree with sa DFA and the BSP that we cannot impose those financial institution na magkaroon din ng discount. So I believe that itong measure na ito will be applicable only sa ating financial institutions sa Pilipinas. And then, so what is the figure po that we are looking at it? So maybe 100 pesos or 50 pesos discount. So in this, kung may enjoy po ba ng family yung 50 pesos na discount? So hindi po, parang hindi mararamdaman. So I would like to suggest to refine the measure, the House bill, na instead of discount, mag-withheld ng that 50% discount, ilagay po natin sa fund. Ilagay po natin sa fund for OFW reintegration. So in that case, mas massive po ang matutulungan ng OFWs po dito. So hindi po let's say 50 pesos discount sa per family. So let's take a look at the 1 million per 1 million OFWs na magre-remit per month. So ilan po 'yon? Around 600 million. 600 million yun for a year, for a year. So it will be a big help in case of magkaroon po tayo ng program for integration sa OFWs. So yun lang po ang aking comment po, Congressman Salo. Thank you po.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Paul Madriaga, sa iyong input. We'll definitely consider that. I'm sure our authors present in the room will be very much agreeable in ensuring na mas maganda po yung kalalabasan po nitong panukalang batas po natin. Thank you. Anybody else who wish to speak? Representative Yap, Christian Yap.
Thank you, Chairman Ron. Yeah, I'd just like to make an inquiry or a manifestation regarding in protecting siguro the remittances of our OFWs. I think a big thing we should also look at is the conversion rates. Diba? These remittance companies may provide that they are charging very minimal or low remittance costs, pero ang taas naman ng mga remittance rates. So maybe DFA, is there parang a way, is there a centralized conversion cost for the different currencies, or is it that a company can adapt to what currency, what are the conversions for the rates when our OFWs remit back to the country? Dahil baka, they're being charged very minimal, but the valuation is very low or very high, which also increases the costs of their remittances. So maybe a resource person can enlighten us about this.
Thank you, Representative Yap. May we request the BSP representative to comment on the query made by Congressman Yap.
Thank you, sir. So for the remittance cost, there is a component of what we call the exchange rate differential. And similar to that is also determined at the point of origination. And the cost that is charged by the money changer or the bank in that other country includes or imputes the foreign exchange differential. But if you look at the World Bank report, which also distinguishes between the fees and the exchange rates, in general, around mga 1% to 0.5% po yung charge na exchange rate differential. So hindi din naman po siya ganun kalaki.
So do you do monitoring if proper exchange rates are followed by our remittance institutions?
So based on the survey, we are able to monitor po the charges that are made by the different banks or money transfer operators in that other country. But as I also mentioned, we also required din naman po our banks to also disclose in detail kung magkano po yung charge. Hindi siya naka-lump sum. So they have to show magkano po yung margin dun sa foreign exchange that they will be
you make recommendations but also to our remittance banks that these are the certain conversion rates that they have to follow?
No, sir. This is market determined, and that is why we are really pushing for competition and more players in the domestic market.
But there's no price ceiling or price maximus. There's no ceiling. There are no nets that they can go lower or higher than a certain conversion.
Right now, we do not impose price ceilings, but we need to make sure that the charges that they impose are also based on their costs. So they also consider their own costs.
Any more? Also, thank you very much, Congressman Yap and Ma'am Sison. May we request the BSP representative to include this in your comments or position paper that you will be submitting to the committee. Thank you. Anyone who still wish to speak on this particular matter? From our resource persons? Wala na po. From our authors, any particular clarification that you wish to make from our resource persons? Kung wala na, may we request all our resource persons to please submit your position paper within 2 weeks from now. Then we will consider this once again in the next succeeding committee hearings that we'll be having. So also we are tasking the COMSEC to consolidate the 9 proposed measures and to collate all the position papers that will be submitted and consider the comments to be made in these position papers in the provisions of the consolidated measure. And as soon as it's consolidated, we'll meet and refer it to the Committee on Ways and Means for the committee's comments also, particularly in the tax provision. Thank you. Any motion to defer and first is to consolidate the measure? Any representative who will move for the consolidation of the measures as well as to defer its consideration meantime? Yes. Representative.
Yes, I move for the consolidation of the bills.
Thank you. Any second motion? Any objection? I hear none,
Chairman.
yes,
Chairman,
Representative.
how about my bill because it's past in third reading?
Yes,
Some
Deputy
18
Speaker
seconds.
Gonzales, we've discussed your measure along with all the other measures that we're discussing now. There are 9 measures, basically. And you're right, we mentioned that this has already been passed on third reading in the previous Congress. But at the same time, our resource persons here, particularly from the BSP and the DOF, have their inputs in order for us to enhance the proposed measure. And we note also the comments from the the Bankers Association of the Philippines, that the regional objective of the proposed measure when it was first introduced was to lower it to 50% the cost of remittance fees. But so far, according to them, it has now gone down to as low as 25% from the initial time, from the original time when it was first introduced. So we'll consolidate it first, Deputy Speaker Gonzales. That's the reason why it has been moved and seconded, and there was no objection for us to consolidate the measure and to consider the position papers of the various agencies to enhance the provision of the proposed measure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So with that, we will proceed now to the second item. That is the proposed measure on credit assistance program for OFWs. We note also that Representative Marissa Magsino is the primary author of House Bill 365, and she's not in the room. May we request for any manifestation or motion for us to adopt the sponsorships, to adopt the explanatory note to be the sponsorship speech of the author.
Yes, I move that we adopt the motion, the statement of Representative Magsino.
The explanatory note to be the sponsorship speech. Any objection? I hear none. So we will put on record the explanatory note of House Bill 365 to be the sponsorship speech of the author. We now acknowledge Congressman Yap again for House Bill 1188, an act establishing a credit assistance program for overseas Filipino workers. You're recognized, Representative Yap.
Thank you, Chairman Ron Salo, on the opportunity to give the opening statement for my House Bill 118. So, an act establishing a credit assistance program for overseas Filipino workers. Pursuant to the mandate of the state to protect all its citizens, including the families of OFWs, Republic Act Number 8042, or Migrant Workers and Overseas Filipino Act of 1995, was enacted. One of the objectives of this law is to provide for the families of currently employed OFWs to avail of the Family Assistance Loan from the Overseas Welfare Administrations, or OWA, in cases of emergency situations. This law, however, omits the initial stages of OFW employment, wherein families may suffer from bearing the cost of their living expenses in the absence of their OFW relative. It is in this light that I propose this measure seeking to provide a credit assistance program to capacitate the families of OFWs to pay for their living expenses. This bill gives a prospective OFW who has a valid contract as a certified by the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or POEA, the opportunity to avail of 50,000 pesos loan from OWA to shoulder the living expenses of his or her family during the initial period of the latter's overseas employment. Adequate safeguards in the fulfillment of the loan obligation and imposition of the penalties for erring government officials are further established under this measure. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and to all the authors of the same bill, we pray that this piece of legislation be passed to the soonest possible time.
Thank you very much.
Sir Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much, Representative Yap. Now we acknowledge the authors of House Bill number 3378, an act establishing a credit assistance program for overseas Filipino workers, introduced by Representative Bryan B. Revilla, Representative Lani Mercado-Revilla, and Representative Ramon Jolo Revilla III. We acknowledge and recognize Representative Lani Mercado-Revilla to sponsor her measure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs, guests and ladies and gentlemen, magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. Remittances from overseas Filipinos have kept our economy afloat even during the pandemic when the country was beset by an economic crunch. In 2020, the total remittance sent by OFWs reached to 29.9 billion US dollars. In 2021, OFW remittances hit an all-time high of $31.4 billion, which accounted for 8.9% of the country's GDP. While remittances are private funds, they confer
It seems that the internet connection is fluctuating. Representative Lani Mercado. Perhaps we'll acknowledge other author of House Bill number 3378, Representative Ramon Jolo Revilla.
Mr. Chair.
You're recognized, Representative Bryan Revilla.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt my explanatory note as the sponsorship speech for this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we adopt the sponsorship speech of the explanatory note as a sponsorship speech of Representative Bryan Revilla. How about Representative Ramon Jolo Revilla? Okay, thank you. I think is not anymore around. At any rate, we will be requesting Representative Lani Mercado Revilla. We respectfully note that you had a fluctuating signal, so
Yes.
please proceed again.
Yes, however, in spite of the economic benefits that the government derived from OFWs, the migrant workers themselves are often financially hard up. OFWs are vulnerable to risks and predation even before they leave the country. Some OFWs, particularly those that are new hires, suffer severe indebtedness even before starting their jobs abroad due to the high cost of recruitment. Some settle their placement fees through salary deduction, and some face delays in their salary payment that leave their families at home more financially incapacitated. Others are victimized by illegal recruitment and contract and visa deception. In order to alleviate the burden experienced by these modern-day heroes and make their families financially capable as they settle in their new living arrangements, this bill seeks to create a credit assistance program for OFWs. With a valid contract, an OFW may avail of a loan up to 50,000 pesos from Overseas Workers Welfare Administration to defray the living expenses of the OFW's family in the few months of his or her absence, as well as other expenses incurred in the processing of the OFW's employment. Our migrant workers already endure a lot of sacrifices just to be able to provide a comfortable life for their loved ones while helping to strengthen the economy. Let us strengthen our support for them by approving this measure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Magandang umaga po.
Thank you very much, Representative Lani Mercado Revilla, for your extensive sponsorship speech on your measure. We just respectfully note, ma'am, that there were instances that in as much as your internet connection was fluctuating, may we request you to submit a copy of your manuscript of the one that you've read in order for us to make sure that the entirety of your speech will be placed on record. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Will do.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now, we will recognize Admin Arnel Ignacio because we respectfully note that the proposed measure, in truth, the OWA is already mandated, I understand, to provide credit assistance to our OFWs. And we're wondering how is this being implemented by OWA, or what exactly is the program being undertaken by OWA now that has similar objective as to the proposed measure.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. As experience po ng OWA, we have provided loans to our OFWs as far back as 1986. But may I ask permission from the chair that may we discuss this with the proponents of the bill? I can visit them and provide them with all the documents that may explain further our position. But of course, we support, but we just would like to present the documents to explain our experience with regards to loan programs with the OFW.
Thank you, Admin Arnel. Perhaps you can also furnish the committee so all the members will be apprised of your position paper. We wish to hear also the program, as you mentioned, as well as what are the programs, credit programs that the OWA is already administering or providing to our OFWs. Number two, we're wondering whether in this regard, would we still need a proposed legislation or is this already part of the mandate already and being undertaken already by OWA? And how can we enhance those particular provisions of the law to make sure that the objective as espoused by the authors will really be realized?
Yes. The loan and credit assistance is part of the mandate of OWA, Republic Act 10801. We have been providing loans to our OFWs, and we will be more than glad to provide the committee and the authors of the bill regarding the experience of OWA, so we can further appreciate and study the benefits or that we can avail out of these bills. We'll prepare a position paper and the documents that will echo our experience. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Admin Arnel. Perhaps you will hear also from resource persons, particularly from the private sector, or the OFW organizations, who are actually the ones clamoring, I understand, for the creation of this particular credit assistance program. May we acknowledge Mr. Paul Madriaga from Bansa for any comments on the proposed measure?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Congressman Salo, for the acknowledgement. Yeah, I believe this is already incorporated in the OWA Act, this measure, under Section 35, line C, loan and other credit assistance. Again, the law is clear that OWA shall provide low-interest loans to member OFW, and it shall have the authority to hire experts in finance or banking to assist in implementing the said loan programs. So kasama na po sa sa OWA Act. So dapat ang measure po na dapat ginagawa na po ng OWA ito ever since. Pero natigil po kasi ang nakita dito, merong mga uncollectibles na mga nangyari. So based on the audited financial statements na nakita ko, so we have a 1 billion outstanding loan and receivables po sa OWA, under ng OWA. So again, it will burden the OWA pagka natuloy na naman po ito. So ito nakikita ko rito po. So
yes, Admin Arnel.
Thank you very much, Bansa Paul. Ayoko na nga banggitin muna eh.
And then, dito na po tayo.
Thank you. Kasi because I don't want to open, we prefer na isubmit sa ating committee the details of experience of ours. Actually, bigyan ko na lang yung clue. Ang dami na po naming AOM. But,
yes. So,
pero ito po naman na mapapangako namin. Ikaw naman, Paul eh. Ito po mapapangako namin sa lahat po ng mga nagsulong ng bills with regards to loan. We will strive very hard to provide support and some concepts that can support this with para po yung goal nitong ating bill ay masagot din. Opo. Maraming salamat. Thank you po.
Thank you, Admin Arnel. Definitely. Yes, we're one with the authors as well as we're one with you, ensuring that our OFWs will really have access to credit assistance. And we recognize also Mr. from ako OFW attorney David Castillon.
Mr. Chair, I believe our Vice Chair, Timer Olaso, would like to say something.
Yes, Vice Chair Olaso, you're recognized. Before we go to ako OFW attorney David Castillon. Vice Chair Olaso? Mukhang wala pa. So we acknowledge attorney Castillon.
Yes, Mr. Chair, good morning. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to present our comment, Your Honor, on the part of the recruitment agencies. Now, a while ago, there was an issue raised on the uncollectibles. The fact that there are uncollectibles is not really a hindrance for us to continue or to pursue the passing of these bills, Your Honor. The bill could actually change the entire system of the recruitment industry, Your Honor, and also for the protection of the OFW. Now, I would just like to present four risks, Your Honor, because we are trying to create a law which would protect the OFW, but we will be confronted by these four risks, Your Honor. Number one is the risk that there will be a high volume of our OFWs who would avail of the loan, because the requirements now would be very simple. We just have to present 3 requirements and they will avail of this loan. So the idea is that most of the OFWs who will be working abroad will be availing this loan. So the second risk would be, will there be an available funds? Because there are two possibility. Maybe the funds will not be readily available because of the volume. And number two, maybe there are available funds, but later on, there is a risk of running out of funds because of the volume. So there is really a direct proportion and direct connection when it comes to the volume and the availability of the funds. And number three, the risk of possible default. This is probably the reason why they are trying to justify the issue on uncollectible accounts, because it would really reflect our effectivity, the efficiency and the effectiveness of the credit system on how are we going to collect the balance of the loan of the OFWs, because the issue on unpaid accounts is just an effect, Your Honor. But the cost, we have to look at the root cause why OWA is not able to collect the uncollectible accounts. So that's the issue, Your Honor, of default, because under the present law, we have already a law under Republic Act 8042 and the Republic Act 10022. The reason for the default, Your Honor, is precisely because of the pretermination of the recruitment agreement, the pretermination of the employment agreement, Your Honor, the contract. When there is an illegal dismissal, when the contract of the worker is terminated, the present laws, Your Honor, requires the lending institution, not the OWA, to go into renegotiation or condonation, Your Honor. So there are two options, because the law would require someone or some entity who would lend money to the OFW to renegotiate, meaning they cannot just compel the OFW to pay, because precisely because if the OFW is terminated by the employer without justifiable reason. So if the OFW is a victim of illegal dismissal, so the OFW would have no capacity to pay. So then it will now trigger the risk of default, Your Honor. So there are two instances. Maybe it is because of termination or the illegal dismissal. And number four, Your Honor, is the risk of losing the funds. Because precisely what are we going to do if the OFW is terminated and he will no longer have the capacity to pay? So there is now a danger of losing public funds, Your Honor, Mr. Chair. And I would like to expose, Your Honor, because our lawmakers are present right now. I would like to expose that the law, which is Republic Act 8042 and 10022, is not being implemented properly. You know why? I have been handling thousands of cases of OFW who are suffering from this problem, Your Honor. They were compelled to pay by the private lending institution. The law requires 8% maximum interest under the present law, 8% maximum annual interest. Now, we have a new law which supposedly it will be much better than the present law. It requires only 6%. But what are we going to do? Because at present, the actual situation, this is not being followed by the lending institution. Some of the lending institution would charge as high as 20%, 25%, and that is why I always write a letter to the lending institution. If they continue to harass, Your Honor, so how do we implement the present laws, not only when it comes to the new law requiring OWA to somehow function as a lending institution, because we have a present problem. So before we could actually require OWA to function like a lending institution, which is really very difficult for them. I understand the position of our administrator, but really this is a very big problem for our OFWs. I have thousands of cases of distressed OFW who could not afford to pay their outstanding balance. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Castillon. Perhaps we'll be requesting you to submit your position papers, so we'll be able to consider it also when we draft the consolidated version of the bill. Perhaps we will be requesting BSP to comment on the items mentioned by Attorney Castillon. Yes, Ma'am Sison, particularly in those items that you mentioned that about the lending institutions, and is there really cap as of the moment?
I think this attorney was referring to the OWA law, sir. Mr. Chair, it's not from the bank.
Okay, so specifically this matter is not within your jurisdiction. Is that what we're saying, Ma'am Sison?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think the subject of the discussion is on the OWA law.
Okay, thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Attorney Castillon.
Mr. Chair, the lending institution is within the jurisdiction, I think, of the central bank, Your Honor, because they are lending money to the OFWs, because precisely the OFW would go to the lending institution because they would not, because there are instances that they are not availing of the salary deduction. So they do not want to be bothered by the employer when it comes to salary deductions. That's why they are taking loans from lending institution, private lending institution. Now we have a law which makes it illegal, or it prohibits lending institution to charge annual interest more than 8%. So the maximum rate of interest that the lending institution could actually charge on an annual basis.
Attorney David Castillon.
8%.
Yes,
Yes,
Attorney
Your
David
Honor.
Castillon, perhaps you need to furnish us a copy of that particular law, because I understand we have no usury law as to the moment. So I'm just wondering what is the basis of the cap. That's the reason why I called the attention of
yes, that is the Republic Act 8042, Your Honor, as amended by the Republic Act 10022. The particular law, Your Honor, is Republic Act 10022, because that particular provision is not found in Republic Act 8042. So there was an amendment, there was an insertion or addition that it becomes a prohibited act for a lending institution to charge an interest which is more than 8% per annum, and it is also a prohibited act under that law if the worker, if the OFW is illegally dismissed. It is also prohibited for the lending institution to refuse to renegotiate or to condone the loan, Your Honor. So that's the particular provision of the Public Act 10022, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney David Castillon. So we'll await for your written position paper in this matter. May we recognize Ms. Gemma Soto from United Filipino Global? You're muted, Ms. Gemma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to all on board, good morning. I would like just to add, Mr. Chair, on behalf of United Filipino Global, I'll make it short, an additional investment incentives, especially for the BSP of their new proposals. We would like to reiterate for an additional investment incentives, lalo na we, the OFWs, are 10 to 12 contribution to the GDP of the Philippines. Sana naman ma-additional ang especially ang aming scholarships. I know OWA, we have it already, but I think with through the BSP, we can also acquire some scholarships and the tax incentives for the OFWs. Yun lang po, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gemma Sotno. So we'll consider your inputs. Now we recognize Ms. Raquel Bracero from Pasay, President of Pasay. Ms. Raquel, you're recognized.
Good morning po, Mr. Chair. Good morning po, everyone here. Okay, the position of Pasay is, okay, this credit assistance program through the OWA will help, but the availability of the credit from the OWA would make it easier to pursue the overseas employment and would-be OFWs, and please take note that they are not yet OWA members, would no longer be driven to resort to many unscrupulous individuals who bleed them dry. However, we would like to raise the concern regarding the use of OWA funds. By law and by its nature, the OWA funds are funds held in trust for OFWs or members. These funds do not come from government appropriations, but from the contributions paid by the Philippine recruitment agencies for each OFW they deployed. We are concerned that adding the function of lending out to would-be OFWs or not yet members of OWA would unduly drain the OWA fund that would result in lack of funds for its other programs for the OWA members. We are concerned about it also on the implementation program from lending out to collection. We would suggest that the credit program be done through government institutions that have the expertise insofar as credit facilities are concerned. This would make the rollout of the program proceed more smoothly and with the least amount of organizations as it is possible. And we would like to emphasize also, there is an OFW bank. So baka pwede doon po, not in the OWA, because ang pinag-usapan po dito ay hindi pa po sila OWA members. So yun po ang aming
Mr. Chair.
Thank you po.
Maraming salamat po, Pasay President Raquel Bracero. Thank you for your inputs and the comments. We'll definitely consider the comments that you've made, and we will reiterate our instruction to our COMSEC to invite OF Bank in our next hearing for us to hear their comments as well, and we hope that they'll be willing to accommodate our credit assistance program to our would-be OFWs. Yes,
Mr. Chair, just a very short rejoinder. Maikling-maikli lang.
Yes, Admin Arnel, you're recognized.
Yes. Thank you very much, Pasay President Raquel. Yan po sana yung mga i-include namin sa isasubmit namin sa committee. Now, since it's all been mentioned, I'd like to add because it's a trust fund, yung pong approval ng kahit na ano pong utilization nito goes through the Board of Trustees. So it will complicate the whole matter. So inihahain ko lang po yung detalye na yun sa ating po mga mambabatas to consider, kasi merong Board of Trustees yan kung paano pong gagastusin. And second, OWA, in spite of our number of years dito, hindi ho namin expertise kasi ang magpa-loan. And pagka lumipat-lipat na yung mga OFW ng bahay, we have no way of tracing them. And way back 1986, we have a very dire collection rate of only 30%. And now we're, of course, we're all answerable to the COA with several AOMs already. Not because we do not want to support, but these are just details that we'd like to extend to the committee for your appreciation. And of course, we will be offering our hand in order to support the cause of our congressmen who are equally concerned with the benefit of our OFWs. Maraming salamat po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Admin Arnel. We'll definitely consider those inputs that you made. Now we go back to Representative Kamer Olaso, Vice Chair. Representative Olaso, are you still around? If not, then we recognize DMW Asek Alcantara.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair. We just want to echo the concern of our distinguished administrator of OWA that perhaps there's a more prudent way of helping our OFWs. Needless to say, we defer to the official position of OWA as it has the accountability to manage OFW funds as it is also a contributory system. If or when a loan program can be implemented by OWA once again. Perhaps also moving forward, there might be some measures that could be considered safeguard measures to protect OFWs and their families from intermediaries who take advantage of the need of OFWs and encouraging them to take up loans. Maybe more intense education on OFWs as regards to access to productive resources, the loan interests and manners of payment, and as well as maybe a prescription of allowable purposes for loans when there's a legitimate need for OFWs to take up such loans. And perhaps separately, Mr. Chair, the good legislature would also take up consideration on specific legislation that will protect OFWs from lenders that target OFWs with high interest rates or measures of such kind. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Asek Alcantara. We'll definitely consider the comments that you made. Representative Yap, any particular concerns that you wish to raise?
Yes, I just want to make another manifestation. And Chair, regarding the comments of OWA, maybe because previously I was a mayor, and regarding access to credit, I've seen local cooperatives who have been successful in creating local lending systems, diba? I think if you will deal with them individually, but if there is an organization that you can tap, like a local group of OFWs who are able to execute and provide the social pressures that if they're not able to comply to the loans, it is the institution or their organization that will suffer. Like I've seen it in as a mayor during different, our market, our vendors association, they give out loans to different vendors, but there is social pressure within their organization to comply for the loan. So this is maybe a model that will help provide the loan, the necessary access to capital of our OFWs. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Yap. Perhaps you can consider those in enhancing the provisions to the measure that you proposed. Thank you. We acknowledge now the representative from GMG or FAME, Director Joe Cato.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity. From our sector, we would like to second and support this law because we believe this is going to be a very good assistance to the OFWs, especially to our seafarers. However, we'll also like to second the concerns given by the different sectors, especially Attorney Castillon, and also from our social partners or our co-branch of the land-based sector, Ms. Bracero, regarding the facts that there are times that the OFW or the seafarer in our case defaults. Like for one reason or another, he doesn't push through, or he gets sick, or he is dismissed for just cause. So who's going to pay for the loan that he has contracted? And also in support of OWA, we believe that if this law passes, we are almost sure that there will be a deluge of borrowers. And again, in support of the fears of the administrator, they have to really study it well if they will be able to sustain the deluge of OFWs wanting to borrow for whatever needs that they will present. That is all, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Director Cato, for your comments. Now we recognize our Representative Lani Mercado, one of the authors, for any particular comments.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm very appreciative of the comments given by all of our stakeholders, most especially OWA, and very much considering that the OFW Bank be invited in our next committee hearing to probably shed light on what would be better for this particular measure, and possibly also consider other government banks to assist. Actually, this particular bill is really for the assistance of the first 3 months of the OFW applying. Alam naman po natin na umuutang ang mga OFWs na ito, and hopefully they become OWA members as specified by the persons sharing their positions in this particular measure. Thank you very much, and willing to read all of the position papers to be submitted, especially of our OWA administrator, and looking forward to their report on collections with regards to the overwhelming uncollectables of 1 billion. Nakakagulat po, pero let's see how we can help and hopefully support OWA. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Representative Lani Mercado-Revilla. We'll definitely consider the comments that you've made. Yes, we will be inviting the OF Bank in our next hearing for us to be guided properly on how to proceed with this proposed measure to make sure that the objective will be realized. Of course, considering also the comments that were made and to be made by our resource persons. So we'll, we'll be ending soon, but we'll be calling 5 more. So we'll call Representative Ulaso later, then Captain Osenia, Mr. Paul Madriaga, then United Filipino, again for Gemma Soto, Ms. Gemma Soto. So we'll start with Vice Chair Ulaso. Vice Chair Ulaso.
Yes, Mr. Chair, good morning. Thank you so much for recognizing me, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I have a few concerns, Mr. Chair, pertaining to the present situation of our maritime industry in the Philippines, Mr. Chair. So, unang-una sa lahat, Mr. Chair, meron tayong mga tinatawag na dapat i-consider, and I think it's about time to sit up with Marina. Let's talk with Marina and different agencies pertaining po sa present situation that non-compliance po tayo in Pilipinas po sa EMSA, and we also had the IMSA. So dapat pag-usapan po natin po, Mr. Chair, and this is a very serious problem, Mr. Chair, kasi pag itong mga marino natin, Mr. Chair, what I mean, hindi tayo nakapasa sa ngayong evaluation this coming December, then delikado po, Mr. Chair. Marami pong mga marinang orders na 30 to 50,000 hindi makakasakay ng barko, Mr. Chair, especially on those management level. And that will badly affect the industry, not only the industry, but the entire economy, Mr. Chair. Being a former seafarer, I'm a ship captain, Mr. Chair. I've been sailing for 18 years, and I'm also an OFW. as a first district of Zamboanga City representative, that is also my main concern. Aside from my parochial concern, that is also my main concern. Yung mga seafarers natin, dapat natin tulungan. I think, Mr. Chair, let us call up Marina and we'll discuss this among us muna din with the other stakeholders para pwede natin i-resolve whatever yung mga deficiencies na meron po tayo sa current situation. Because only us, seafarer, and only us, mulat namin na alam mo, we belong to the industry, would understand whatever is the problem that is arising at the Marina and our government, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Olaso, for your passion. I can really sense your passion concerning our compliance with the concerns related to our seafarers. In truth is, I already went to Marina myself to meet with the heads of Marina and to discuss this particular matter. And yesterday, I met with OMWA to discuss also how do we proceed on this particular matter that you've raised. And please be assured that we will be scheduling briefing 2 weeks from now. That will be the topic of this committee. But for the meantime, what we're discussing is our 2 measures on the protection of remittances of OFWs, which we just finished. And now we're on discussing the credit assistance program for OFWs. Please be assured, Vice Chair, that we will be discussing this matter 2 weeks from now. We'll be issuing an invitation to all the members, as well as those who are willing to attend the briefing, as well as how to proceed and to address the concerns relating to our seafarers, in as much as we understand and we value the contributions of our seafarers to the coffers of the government, to the economy of the Philippines.
Yes,
Thank you.
I fully understand the situation, sir, and thank you so much for the concern. And one more concern, Mr. Chair, pertaining our OFWs pertaining to, I hope that we can put something in Mindanao as well, Mr. Chair, including the medical, wherein our seafarers or OFW can take their medical examinations, Mr. Chair, kasi tulad dito sa Zamboanga City, Sibugay, Del Norte, Del Sur, when they want to go for physical examination, they have to come to Manila for us, Manila. Sabi ko kung sana we can talk with all manning agencies, including manpowers, kung pwede, we will assign one medical center here in Region 9, Region 10, so that we can help our seafarers that is coming from the Mindanao. I mean, not only seafarers, but including land-based OFW that is coming from Mindanao. Pwede po sila mag-medical dito sa atin, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair. Don't worry, Vice Chair. Sa next hearing, pag-uusapan po natin yan. Meantime, babalik po tayo dito sa pinag-uusapan po ng committee po natin. It's on the credit assistance program for our OFWs. Please be assured that we will be sending you a copy of the invitation as well as the agenda for that particular meeting, which will specifically discuss the concerns that you're raising now.
Yes,
Thank you, Vice Chair Olaso.
I would like to co-sponsor any resolution or any that has been proposed. I would like to co-sponsor Mr. Chair subject to style and I'm for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again for your passion on this particular issue, Vice Chair Olaso. With that, we will acknowledge Captain Osenia for his comments on the proposed measure that we're discussing.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity to talk to the body. On the part of the seafarers, we are actually we have already started about this credit facility. We started with creating a maritime bank of the Philippines starting March 21, and for that we made a Maritime Consolidated Association of the Philippines Incorporated, presumably to answer the needs for this credit facility for the seafarers, not only for the personal needs, but also for their business needs. Now, we will be writing our proposal, submitting it to your office, giving the details of all of this. And I would say that we are directly doing what is right. We have to address it. Now, if I may suggest to the 3 authors of the bills on the credit for the seafarer OFWs, please include in that bill the ex-OFWs. Like for instance, in my case, I've been a seafarer and not a single cent I get benefit from OWA or from our government. And we have thousands retired seafarers who are not able to benefit anything from the government. So I mean, in terms of those benefits. So we'll put it in writing and submit it to your office. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Nosenia. So we'll definitely be expecting to receive a copy of the efforts that you're doing. And I just wish to comment that with your statement na wala po tayong nakuha sa OWA, for one, we're very thankful because OWA specifically catering to the welfare of OFWs, but at the same time, it's really an insurance fund, quote unquote. So kung wala pong nangyari po sa inyo during those times that you were abroad, then I suppose we're thankful enough that hindi nyo na po kinailangan po yung services that is being offered by OWA. So hindi po kayo na problema. So congratulations. At ngayon, you're pursuing also the pushing for a bank that will cater to the needs of our seafarers. So congratulations. So would really love to hear the progress of those particular programs that you are undertaking for our OFWs, particularly the seafarers. So tatawag pa po tayo ng 4 o 5 maximum. So we're calling IRMAP Representative Integrated Risk Management Association. May we inquire what's the, kindly introduce yourself. Yes, a representative from IRMAP, kindly introduce yourself, then please state your comment on the proposed measure that we're discussing. Hindi po namin kayo marinig, nakamute po ata po kayo, or masyado mahina po yung dating po ninyo. Meantime, we're calling for Alan Tulalian from the Trinidad and Tobago, Caribbean Island.
Magandang umaga po, Chairman, Sir. Ang concern po talaga namin dito sa Trinidad and Tobago o sa buong Caribbean Island is yung pagpapadala ng mga remittances, lalo na po kasi dito sa Caribbean Island is yung mahigpit po dito yung money laundering. May higpit din po ang magpadala dito sa MoneyGram, saka po sa ibang mga remittances. Buti na lang po nabuksan po yung OFW Bank, kahit papano nakakapagpadala kami through digital sa OFW Bank. Kaso nga lang is may limit po yung pagpapadala, hindi katulad po dyan sa Middle East and sa part ng America and Europe na walang limit. At isa pa po sa mga concern namin dito sa Caribbean Island, we are about 30,000 Filipinos and overseas Filipinos, and Caribbean Island is about 26 island. Ang magkakaiba po yung consulate namin dito, katulad ng St. Martin at Aruba, under po sila ng the Netherlands. Ang Suriname at Guyana is under sila ng Brazil Embassy, at ang Bermuda is under ng Canada, and the rest is under ng Washington DC. So ang kailangan po namin dito sa Caribbean Island is ang satellite consulate. Gawa po ng ang dami namin problema dito, alalayo po ng aming mga embassy. So dito po is every year may hurricane. Nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, bihiraw sila makapunta dito. At ang problema namin number 1 dito is aming mga passport. Ang hirap pong pumunta sa aming mga embassy, at ang pag-registered ng mga sa overseas voters, marami po hindi nakaboto dito. Sana po magkaroon po kami dito ng satellite embassy sa Caribbean Island. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat din, Mr. Alan Tulalian, for the comments that you mentioned, for the concerns of our OFWs from Trinidad and Tobago, Caribbean Islands. So we take note of the concerns. I understand that yung una po yung concern, it's really more on the remittances, which we've discussed previously kanina po sa first portion. Dito po sa pangalawa po, pinag-usapan natin yung credit assistance program. At the same time, you mentioned also the need for additional or for an embassy or a consulate in your area. So we'll be appealing, of course, to the DFA who are present in the room as well as from the DMW, please be assured we will trash this out, this particular matter. We'll bring this matter to them. Meantime, we'll go back to the discussion that we're having, which is on the proposed measure on credit assistance program. We'll be directly coordinating with you. ComSec Chris Lumibaw, Attorney Chris, will be coordinating with you on your particular issue, and we will bring it directly to the DFA as well as to the MW, who I understand also are present in the room. Thank you, Mr.
Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat po. Isa pa po, saludo po ako sa Polo OWA. Biruin po ninyo ang Polo OWA na under ng Washington DC. Sakop po nila ang buong Americas. Americas is about 52 states and plus their territory, and then plus the Caribbean island. Nagagawa po ng maayos ang trabaho ng Polo sa OWA. Katunayan po, may outreach po sila dito sa 15 and 16 at magse-seminar po ang OWA sa pangunguna ng aming welfare officer na face-to-face para sa small training business na programa ng OWA.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Alan Tulilian, and congratulations sa Admin Arnel as well as to the MW. We'll also endeavor, kasama rin po sa i-discuss po namin later on sa kanila, would be setting up not only a satellite office but talagang opisina po dyan sa area po ninyo para mas makiter po yung mga pangailangan po ninyo. In time, we'll go back dun sa discussion po natin, which is on the credit assistance program for OFWs, and we recognize ako OFW representative Marissa Sadicon. And later on, 2 more. Okay. Representative Sadik Marcia. Hindi po kayo marinig. Hindi po kayo marinig. Wala po kayong sound. Siguro balik po tayo muna sa...
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you po sa pag-recognize. You hear me, sir? You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
I'm Jennifer Guardian, OFW in Dubai, UFG Airmap. Napakaganda po yung bill na pre-post ng mga sponsor para sa aming mga OFW para sa credit loan namin. Sana po kung sakali pong matuloy na po, sana maimbitahan po yung mga OFW po anong sistema, kasi kami po na OFW, I'm 18 years in Dubai. I'm taking already 3 to 4 times loan, and okay naman yung facility. At ang problema nga nakikita namin at yung bilanggit kanina ni Congressman Revilla, paano yung iba pa na paano singilin. Hindi lang po naging problema ng Pilipinas dito po sa Dubai, different nationality, yan din po naging problema, pero meron po silang magandang ginawang mekanismo para mahabol yung mga defaulter. At the same time po, sa ating mga OFW, sa mga Pilipino, pwede ho kaming magbigay ng additional information para po dyan sa aming, para po sa mga defaulter, at least yung mga hindi nakapagbayad. Kasi kami po rito, tulad po sa amin sa Dubai, we getting 5 to 6 million kung maglo-loan kami. Within 1 week, nakukuha na namin. Kaya nakakapag-ipon kami. Pero sabi doon, ang problema, paano magbabayad, siguro po sa magandang mekanismo na lang po igawan kung paano po masigil yung mga OFW. Pero napakaganda po ng bill, at saka sana po sa OFW bank po idaan, wag sa kooperatiba, para diretso po kami kung sakali po kaming maglo-loan. At
salamat po.
Salamat
sa
po.
Comments po ninyo. We greatly appreciate the inputs that you've made, as well as in suggesting also that we will course through the OF Bank. Thank you. So, balikan po natin si ako OFW Representative Marcia Sadicon, National President.
Hello, yes. Thank you, Com-Chair, Congressman Salo. I would just like to add, since this proposed bill is for payment, I think it focuses on the payment of placement fee and some amount to be left to their families before they leave in going abroad. Baka naman po pwedeng to request the authors, the honorable authors, baka naman po pwedeng i-expand po natin na kung po pwede maka-avail din ng emergency loan, for example, for tuition fee payments, something like that. But again, there should be a very effective way of or a mechanism to collect back, especially if this bill is focusing on the OWA as the lending institution. Kasi we have to remember the fund of OWA is coming from the membership of the hard-earned money of our OFWs. So let us be also a good steward on its funds. Segue na lang din po, Chairman, baka po pwede, since we are discussing about how to ease the burden of our OFWs doon sa mga loans, baka pwedeng one of the congressmen here present in this Zoom think about or consider something like an automatic approval for housing loans for our OFWs in partnership with Pag-ibig. Suggestion lang po. Since na-touch na po yung topic na loan assistance, baka pwede na nating i-expand yan further to cover the automatic approval of housing loans for OFWs. Maraming salamat po. God bless you.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Marissa Sadicon. So we'll definitely consider the comments that you made and the inputs. Soon, perhaps we can invite, if there's a appropriate measure for that, we'll be inviting Pag-ibig as well as the Department of Housing and Urban Development Department. So may we request now Mr. Paul Madriaga for any comments on this particular measure that we're discussing? Yes.
Good morning again, Congressman Salo. So thank you for the opportunity. So isang point of comment lang po sa ating ano. Again, this boils down to sustainability ng funds ng OWA. So I've been proposed during the previous meeting na magkaroon ng study na gawing every year na ang OWA membership fee, provided that yung ating mga social benefits ay itataas din po, lalo yung death benefits na 2 decades ago na hindi na angkop sa kayong pamumuhay. So yun lang po. So para makasustain sa mga funds na kailangan ng program ng OWA, so maybe our legislators can take a look to make the membership on an annual basis. Sabi nyo nga po, I treat that my OWA membership as insurance din po. So every year dapat magbabayad ka ng insurance. So yun lang po.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Paul Madriaga. Perhaps we will be requesting also Admin Arnel for him to present to us what exactly are the other benefits that are being received by our OFWs and how we can enhance this particular assistance or programs that are being extended to by OWA to its members and your families. Now, panghuli siguro si Ms. Gemma Soto. Any additional comments on this measure that we're discussing?
Wala na po, Mr. Chair, and pasasalamat na lang po sa lahat, especially Salo for leading the discussion of the betterment of the Department of Migrant Workers, and so with the investments for the BSP. We will just submit our position na lang po, Chair. And thank you all very much. Have a good one for today.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gemma Soto. Siguro, for the last... Yeah, thank you, Vice Chair Olaso. Siguro, isa pa kung mayroon pa, we'll open one more slot para kung sino pa yung gustong magsalita, kung mayroon pa man. Meron pa ba? Gustong magdagdag?
Vice Chair Olaso, Mr. Chair.
Yes, is this related to the credit assistance program that we're discussing, Vice Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Actually, I have a proposed bill, Mr. Chair, pertaining sa OFW, yung tinatawag na Employees Provident Fund. So I want that, our OFWs could have those Employees Provident Fund when they retire, a person working abroad. Maganda to kasi nandiyan connected with OWA, in connection with OWA. Pag nag-retire yung mga OFW natin, may natatanggap po silang mga Provident Fund. So may pinupose po akong bill. I'm hoping that next time we could come up with that proposed bill, Mr. Chair. Provident Fund for OFW. Napakaganda to, malaking tulong po to para sa mga OFW natin dito sa ating bansa, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat, Vice Chair Olaso, for bringing that particular matter to our attention. I'm just wondering, Comsec, just clarification, na-refer na ba sa committee natin yon?
I will have to check, Mr. Chairman, the records of the referral to our committee.
Yes, Comsec, I note the value and the significance of that particular proposed measure, which is also aligned with the proposed measure now that we're discussing, which is really on the benefits of our OFWs. So siguro we can consider that in the next hearing also. Thank you. Anyone else who still wish to speak for the last slot? Director Cato?
Yeah. Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Regarding that comment of bringing back the OWA contributions to every year, we just like to comment that the seafarers contribution of $25 is paid 100% by our principals. So the seafarer does not contribute a single centavo. Everything is shouldered by our principals. So if we bring it back to the every year or every deployment for that matter, it's going to increase the cost of our principals and thereby make the Filipino uncompetitive. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cato, for bringing that to our attention. Finally, may we call or recognize again Representative Lani Mercado-Revilla.
So, Chair, I'd just like to make an inquiry since we are taking into consideration already all of the positions of our or all of our group members who have shared their positions. I would like to find out what would be the next step for these three House bills seeking approval, which pertains to the credit assistance program for OFWs.
Yes, ma'am. So what we'll be doing is to consolidate the measures. So we will be instructing the committee secretary to consolidate the three measures. Number two, we will be requesting now all the resource persons to submit your position papers on these proposed measures within 2 weeks from now. Then that will be considered by the COMSEC. Then the COMSEC will be coordinating with the authors, and later on, we will schedule another hearing on this particular measure that you proposed based on the consolidated measure that will be prepared by the COMSEC. So COMSEC kindly coordinate with the authors of these proposed measures. Yes,
Yes,
Representative Mercado.
Yes, hoping that all of us, the authors of the said measure, be given the position papers of the resource persons involved, so we can prepare for our comments and also our suggestions for the said House bill. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for accommodating us.
Thank you very much, Representative Lani Mercado-Revilla. So we'll be requesting the committee secretary to submit or share the copies of the position paper that will be submitted by all our resource persons and guests. What our aim here, Representative Mercado, is to make sure that this particular proposed measure that you've submitted will be enhanced, and to consider the comments that were made will be made by the resource persons. Thank you. Thank you. Anything more? So, meron pa po ba tayong any other comments? Kasi kung wala na, so we'll move for adjournment. So we'll request once again all our resource persons to submit within 2 weeks from now your written position papers on these particular proposed measures. First, on the protection of remittances of our OFWs, and other on the credit assistance program for OFWs. Any other matters? Anything more that any person in the room who wish to raise anything? So kung wala na, we'll proceed to our favorite part of the hearing, which is adjournment. Anyone who will move for the adjournment?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn this committee hearing.
Any second the motion?
I second, Mr. Chair. Vice Chairman Olaso.
Thank you. Has been moved and seconded, and there's no objection that we adjourn the committee hearing. Once again, thank you very much for all the authors who attended, for all our members, as well as all the resource persons and guests who actively participated in our meeting, in our hearing today. Once again, thank you. We'll be inviting you once again 2 weeks from now would be the briefing concerning our seafarers, in as much as we sense the passion of Vice Chair Olaso in addressing the concerns of our seafarers to make sure that we will not be delisted or deactivated. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go, photo op muna. May request all to open their videos for a...
Please give your best smile, please.
And may request the technical host to do the picture taking.
Apat na screenshots po ito, so tagalan na lang po natin yung pagiti.
Okay.
Tapos na?
Okay na po, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much once again. Thank you, Comsec. Thank you, Representative Mercado. Thank you, Vice Chair Olaso. Yes.
Maraming salamat, Congressman Salo, and to all
Thanks, everyone.
members of this group. Maraming salamat po.
Vice Chair Yap, Admin Arnel. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you po. Regards, Owa,
Thank you.
Arnel.
Thank you po, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you po.
Thank you,
Thank you po.
Kong. Thank you,
Admin.
Paul. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you. Yusek, tatawa ko sa iyo. Yusek de Vega.
Thank you po.
May gusto ko sa iyo.
Secretary Idol, thank you.
Maraming salamat. Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat.
Yeah.
Mapasalamat sa inyo, Chair.